What's up, everybody? Josh here. Just wanted to take a quick second to tell you about one of our favorite companies to utilize during that pre-rut and rut time frame, and that is Brush Creek Monsters, LLC. Brush Creek Monsters is a family-owned and operated business. They are a no BS company, and one of our favorite things about them is they try and keep all of their scent products as natural as they can be. They have natural scrape vines that they will hang with their deer herd to let the bucks and does utilize them, and then they will ship them out to you quickly. They have a very precise process for collecting their doe estrus. There are no additives, and quite frankly, that's some of the fastest turnaround time I've ever had on doe estrus. I've received doe estrus that was collected the day before, so if that isn't fresh, I don't know what fresh is. Now, like I said, they're a family-owned and operated business, and they come in high demand. So if you are wanting any other products, I recommend getting with them sooner rather than later. Check them out at brushcreekmonstersllc.com. That is brushcreekmonstersllc.com. Peep rotation. There's nothing more frustrating than pulling your bow back on a nice buck only to not be able to see your pins clearly because your peep is rotated. This is something that I've personally experienced in the field, and I know Chris and Rick both have as well. In order to reduce this risk, we only pick high-quality bowstrings to put on our bows. That is why this season we have partnered up with Hooked Up Bowstrings. If you are looking for a high-quality string to help get you through the season, look no further than Hooked Up. Matt, the owner, is a fantastic guy. He is an accomplished competition archer and an accomplished hunter in the woods. You can visit his website at hookedupbowstrings.com. Use the code MobileHunter10. That's Mobile Hunter, the number 10, in order to get 10% off your order.
Hey guys, Rick here from the Mobile Hunter Podcast, and I'm here to tell you about one of our sponsors, Sadie's LLC, Custom Ammunition and Gun Works. Aaron Satterfield and his family have been turning out some awesome game loads that have been putting down deer, waterfowl, and turkey all year long. The Sadie's Fatty, the turkey load that we use, can stop a bird dead in its tracks. Check them out at saddiesllc.com. That's SATTIES LLC.com, or on Facebook at Sadie's LLC, and tell them the Mobile Hunter Podcast sent you.
Welcome to the Mobile Hunter Podcast. Our mission is simple. We want to help you become a better hunter. We believe that mobility kills and efficiency will set you free.
Happy Wednesday, everybody. Welcome back to another Wild Calling Wednesday. Today, I am joined by the legend himself, Chris Leppert. Chris, how are you doing, man?
What's up, brother? How are you?
Good. We are in the dog days of our season right now, it appears, but I know you have got a lot of optimism for what's left in your bow season here.
Yeah, I've got a couple of good ones coming in on private, and I still have some hope for some of the little chunks of public that I hunt, and some of the bigger ones as well, especially in Kentucky. So we've got today, as we speak, is the last day of gun season here in Ohio, and we've got muzzleloader coming up in Kentucky, and then we've got a weekend gun season and muzzleloader coming up in Ohio, and then 72 months of bow season left. So should have time. You just, here in Ohio, you really need the weather. I feel like Kentucky's going to be fairly dead other than small game hunters. So I'm looking forward to that a lot. But yeah, we've got some good ones on camera and looking forward to hopefully trying to put one or two down.
Yeah, that's good to hear. Chris, if you guys don't know, is the founder of the Mobile Hunters Expo. You should know because you're listening to this platform right now. But Chris is basically the mastermind behind it all, and he has had a lot of things that have pushed him to essentially go a different route within this industry. The expos, as you know, if you've been there, are extremely intimate. You get to know everyone by first and last name, and you would say hi to them if you ran into anywhere. They're very intimate, and you get to try stuff out, and it's a blast. It's against the grain of a lot of what some of the larger expos are, and it has all the benefits of those. And I think that you may have started your, let's call it, career in this outdoor industry in a very different kind of flavor. And maybe it incentivized you to make sure that you were going to do right by all of the people that are around you and all the things that you touch and start within this industry.
Yeah, it's actually funny you used some wording that hits home a little bit. So the original name of our YouTube channel was Against the Grain.
Really? Wow.
Yeah, and that's pretty much the story of everything. Kind of did things my own way and really did go against the grain. Had a lot of people kind of call me crazy early on, and some still do, but I mean, it is what it is. You gotta do, what you're called to do, or, whatever. And, just try to push through, I guess.
Yeah. You got to chase your wild calling.
Yes, sir.
So yeah, this is a story that we're going to tell today, or you're going to tell, that seems to, from the outside in, have a large influence on the way that you've conducted yourself throughout this. And I guess not many people kind of know this, but we're going to tell the story of why I half-heartedly introduced Chris as Bo Jesus today.
Yeah.
And for those that don't know, kind of describe your background in being a competition archer and how you got into that.
Sure. So we started shooting 3D archery back in 2003, and I always loved it, but I was always I thought I was good, and come to find out I was mediocre. You'd look at some of the scores that were posted, and I never believed that they were real, because who could be better than me and my buddies at archery, right? We're the best there is. And then I remember walking into the local archery shop here, and I talked to the owner and I said, "Hey, what would it take to be on your pro staff?" And this is, before Facebook took off and any of our social media platforms, anything. I don't even know if I had a Facebook at the time, but he said, "Well, you got to be shooting up," which up would be the equivalent to shooting under par in golf. So in 3D archery, for those that don't know, you're shooting at 3D animals, and they have different rings that you physically can't see for the most part with the naked eye. You're always glassing them and then picking like a crease or a dot or something to try to reference and put your pin on or next to or whatever. And so there's the smallest ring is an 11. We call that the X. Some people might call it the bullseye. And then you have the 10 ring, which is a little bigger. And then you have the 8 ring, and then you get a 5 for hitting the animal and a 0 for missing it. And so anything, if you shoot all 10s, that's the equivalent of shooting par. And then anytime you shoot an 11, that's or an X, that's like shooting a birdie. So you would have to be damn good to shoot even, let alone up. That's, if you can do that at all, let alone consistently, you're a fairly good archer. And keep in mind, this is also unknown yardage. So the way I describe it is, you're shooting at something that you basically can't see and picking a yardage that you don't know. And then you're shooting an arrow at it. And it's a game just like anything else, but it's extremely difficult. And then so you add in, a guy like myself with a shorter draw length, I can be the greatest spot shooter in the world, but if I get the wrong yardage, we're out. You're not going to hit it. So I met one of our team members that works the expo. For those of you that have been up there, he's like the Mr. JX3. He's the bigger guy. His name's Eric Grippa, and he works at the front desk and the poles and the whole nine, and he's always in the JX3 on the poles there at the shows. But he got me into 3D a little more heavily in 2018. I had essentially tried to purchase a bow at a local archery shop, and some things didn't really work out. They had some hard feelings, and there was some bad blood there between myself and them. They refused to sell me the bow, the whole nine. I'm not going to go into crazy detail, but I went across town to shoot for their rival archery shop. And so I go there, I start shooting their stuff, and he's like, "Do you think you'll compete?" And I'm like, "Well, I'm on your staff. I probably should. I've always wanted to do a national just to see where I stack up and everything." So I started practicing in January and February, and come to March, and I shot my first national, and I didn't shoot up. I'd been shooting up at the locals, but not at the first few nationals I did, and so I got into that year, and that was my first year, and I actually ended up finishing in the top 10 in the nation.
Wow.
Which is, I mean, it's good, and I'm proud of it. But the difference between like the top 4 or 5 and number 9 or 10, I was 9, I think, was ridiculous. Now, I must preface though, I did not shoot the last shoot of the triple crown, so technically I did not finish top 10. I shot the first 2, but I didn't go to the next one because the top 10 in the nation get kicked out of hunter class. You have to advance to a tougher class, and I didn't want that to happen. I didn't want to finish 9th or 7th or something. Mm-hmm. And the guy that I shot for was like, you probably shouldn't go, and that way next year you can be, one of the top guys or whatever. So that's
explain the classes of that.
Yes. Yeah, so I shot hunter class. That is the entry level class for adults. It is so there's different colored stakes that they stick in the ground, and your foot's got to be touching it when you shoot the animal. And hunter class has a max yardage of 35 yards, but again, I can't stress it enough. The yardage is not marked. You're not allowed to use a rangefinder. You're not allowed to sit there and look at your pins and try to gap it or try anything to help yourself understand a yardage. So then the next class that you would advance to would be either BBO or advanced hunter. Now I should explain that hunter class I was shooting is a fixed pins class. You are not allowed to move a slider pin. You can have a slider, but you can't move it. So essentially it's a fixed pin like anything else. Advanced hunter is a 40-yard max, and that's a fixed pins class. And BBO is the same, but that's one where you can use long bars, so stabilizers that are 4 feet long or however long you want them, and then you can use a slider sight with a tape. And it goes on. I mean, there's a billion of them. It seems like there's trad classes and all kinds of there's BBO and MBO, which is a 45-yard max, and then there's semi-pro and pro, which are out there. I don't know if they're 45 or 50 now. I think they're 50. But yeah, so there's a lot that goes into it.
Yeah, that sounds complicated.
So yeah. I learned a lot that first year, though. Like the things you don't know that you don't know are crazy. Like controlling the lighting in your fiber optics is still probably one of the top 2 best things I ever learned in archery. That and adjusting all the axis adjustments on your sight. When you can control the lighting in your pin, basically controlling the size and how bright or dull you want it. For example, you wouldn't want it super bright at last light, but a lot of people don't realize that the people that have those lights in competition generally have them for the crazy bright conditions so that they can actually see their pin. And I actually ended up going the following year. I went to a sight light I ran clear fibers in my pins, and I could change the color 7 different colors if I wanted for different targets. So that way I had optimal like vision on my pin. Basically, I could see my
Wow.
pins because there's times where you'll be in the shade shooting into the bright sun on a white target, your pins are gone.
Yeah.
It's crazy. So, but so yeah, I mean, we finished well for what we shot that year, and I'd kind of spoken to the guy that I was shooting with about, maybe getting a little more serious, and I was hoping he would talk to the bow company that I was shooting that he carried and everything, and maybe kind of get me like a bow deal or whatever, because I was running the guy's social media. So I had our Fueled by the Outdoors. I was running their social media for their shoot and their strings and their archery shop, and then helping them set all their shoots once a month. I worked the state championship, you name it. And then he wanted me to be his pro staff coordinator. So I'm like, hey, well, what's that gonna, what am I gonna get for that? Basically, that's a lot of time we're talking about. And I was a relatively new father still and everything, just trying to figure out how to navigate everything. And he wasn't really interested in doing anything. So I'm like, man, I don't think I want to be on staff anymore, because I'm essentially not getting anything for it like I thought. Like, it's super glamorized, and then basically you're paying someone to advertise for them. I'm like, what? I feel kind of like a moron. So I told him, I was like, man, I think I'm going to step away from staff this year. And he wasn't super thrilled because he was, I was advertising for him on the page and everything, and he was doing well. So one of my buddies that was on our team, I had started off indoor season that year really well, won some money and some really good shoots, one of the better shoots I've ever been to, actually, indoors. And he started calling me Bow Jesus. And then I ended up getting a bow deal through a company, and they wrote Bow Jesus, hashtag Bow Jesus on the box.
So you're cursed.
Oh, dude. So I didn't dismiss it. I ran with it. I called myself Bow Jesus. I would put hashtag Bow Jesus in my posts. And that year in 2019, I developed target panic. There was a lot of local hate, which, rightfully so. A lot of people don't like getting beat. A lot of people don't like it when you don't do what they want, whatever.
Yeah.
So I kind of expected it.
Did you get flack at all for, I mean, I know some people, if you reach a large enough audience, are going to say something about calling yourself Jesus. And I know this is not a self-appointed nickname, but I'm sure you got plenty.
Yeah. Oh, yeah. I caught a little flack. Mostly people would say it sort of like passive aggressively or whatever. Like, oh, yeah, Bow Jesus, okay, online and everything. And but, the people I was cool with would say it kind of jokingly or whatever. And we'd all laugh and cut up and blah, blah, blah. And I was...
You didn't have anyone thinking you were trying to make a mockery of Jesus, though? Like,
no,
okay, good.
No.
I know. Personally, I would have... It's a tough situation because, like, one, it's a compliment in a way. So, obviously it feels nice. But then it's just like, I don't want to be compared to Jesus in any way.
Well,
but yeah.
That was where I was very immature. And I literally should have shook that one off right away. But I mean, I was going through a big learning process of learning how to deal with sort of having a little bit of an audience, if you will. And then on top of that, I was dealing with a fair bit of local hate. And if there's ever been anybody who can't keep their mouth shut, it's me. So when somebody talks, it's very difficult for me to not say something right back. So I kind of used that a little bit as well. And I shouldn't have. It was stupid. But we start going through the season, and I developed target panic, and it was bad. My buddy that I shot with got me to shoot the knock-on silverback, I think it was, which is a true back tension release. A lot of people see a hinge and they call it a back tension release. It's what we all called it, coming up or whatever, but that's actually just a hinge. Even though every release should be set off with back tension, the true back tension release is basically next to impossible to set up. It doesn't have a trigger. So when you reach a certain poundage, you account for your holding weight of your bow, and then however much you want, in between. And then once you start to pull and flex those back muscles, it just goes. So it teaches you to properly execute a shot. For anybody that's watched John Dudley, Knock On, School of Knock, all that, that's where a lot of this education came from for us. So I started getting a little better, but man, I just couldn't. I couldn't catch a break. I got rid of the target panic, and then I started having equipment issues, and it was bad. Like my bow was coming out of time. I would literally be so tuned, so well tuned, so on that I was shooting. I was can't talk tonight. I was clover leafing or shooting into the exact same hole perfectly out to 35 yards when I was checking the yardage on all my pins. Because I think I ran like a 27 yard and a 32 yard pin or something like that. So I had 2 pins, and you would aim dead on at each yardage just to see what your drop or rise would be. So what you could get away with if you missed the yardage. Well, I would be ridiculous. And then all of a sudden everything would be dropping low the week of the shoot. And it was like a clock. And so I'm like freaking out, and I can't figure out what's going on. Well, finally we find out that I have a cracked limb. Come to find out later on, 2 years later to be precise, I actually had a bad bearing the entire life of the bow as well. So it's like one thing after the next. I replace strings, I replace limbs, you name it. And things are just going wrong. So we get through the Triple Crown, which is 3 shoots. We get through Indoor Worlds, which is in February. We go shoot Winter Nationals, Spring Nationals, and then the first, the National Championship, which is the 3 legs, 3 different months. And all we have left is the World Championship coming up.
How did you perform at those?
Our team won the National Championship by an ungodly amount of points.
Wow.
And I finished... I would actually have to look. So here's what crushed my soul. I shot 4 or 5 up at the first leg, and then I shot 38 down because my bow came out of time.
Wow. And
so that nixed me from the national. I think I finished in the teens, maybe something like that, which wasn't bad for what I had, but it was terrible. And then I ended up shooting 4 or 5 up again at the third leg, which was just super depressing because I was putting it together finally and figuring stuff out. And I guess I should also preface, I went from having other people working on my bow to doing all my own bow work, which was also like, man, am I screwing up my bow? Do I have a bad bow? Do I have bad strings? I have no idea, So we get to the week before the World Championship, and I'm out on Friday evening running my practice. I would practice morning, lunch, and evening, anywhere from 20 to 60 arrows each time, just depend on how everything was going, how I was feeling, and if I wanted to tweak anything or anything. And I started hitting low again. I'm like, dude, what in the hell? And this is when I found that I had a cracked limb. So I called a guy that I was buddies with that was basically like what you could call my home shop. He's in Northern Ohio, up by Zach Kaiser. And it's like, man, sounds like you got a cracked limb. I'll call Bowtech. and we'll see, I'll send an email or whatever, and we'll see, what we can do. Well, I'd actually planned a walleye trip up that way anyway for that following week. So it really kind of sort of worked out better for me than it could have. I dropped my bow off on my way up. Bowtech got my limbs sent out on Monday morning, and they were there Tuesday by lunch. He got them put on, did what he could for tuning, and then I got back home Tuesday night. I tuned the bow as much as I could because I had very little light, and then woke up at daylight the next morning, finished tuning it, and then shot it in and, sighted it in. And we left, I think, around like 9 or 10 o'clock that morning
Oh my God.
for Worlds. So,
Wow.
and so like a lot of these other people got to shoot a bow that just stayed sighted in. They didn't touch anything.
Mhm.
And I had to keep on working on it and keep on working on it. And it was just super frustrating. Well, before we left for Worlds, it wouldn't leave me alone, man. And I can be kind of like superstitious, I guess, here and there. I'm not super bad, but there was just something I had to do. So I took that damn Bow Jesus box out in the backyard. I put it in the fire pit and I burn it. And then I took a picture of it on fire and I made a big post and talked about how everything had gone wrong and named all the things that had gone wrong and all that. And I said, but here's the problem. Here's what I feel like really went wrong. I wasn't humble this year and I didn't go about this in the right way. So from now on, it's just Chris. Don't call me Bo Jesus ever again. And so then it's like super crazy. We show up to the World Championship. This is on a ski resort in West Virginia. I think it's called Snowshoe. I think we're like something like 4,000 feet up or something crazy. I mean, it's like serious mountain terrain, big boulders, and one of the closer places I've been in the east that really compared to out west. And I shot the first day and I shot lights out. Well, not lights out. I took 2.8s, but I took plenty of 11s, and I think I ended up, I ended up shooting 8 up on the first day, which is fairly good. And so I'm coming off the course, and my buddy Luke, who was shooting with me, I call him my shooting partner because we traveled everywhere, split gas, driving the whole nine, right? He had won the national championship, and then we won the team national championship. And he won Shooter of the Year. So he's no joke. So I'm coming off the course, and he's in a group just ahead of me. I said, hey, how'd you finish? He wouldn't answer. And I'm like, I'm going to get up there. And he shot like 19 up, which you shoot 20 targets day 1, 20 targets day 2, and then the top 5 scores shoot what we call the hill. It's 10 target shoot off, and whoever's ahead at the end of that is the winner. Turns out he had shot even that day. Wasn't feeling well. So we're coming off the course. We get up to the registration table, handing our scorecards. I'm like, hey, what's leading it? I'm like, I don't know. Check the papers. And I looked, and it was me. And I'll never forget. It was like, I don't know if I've seen like a movie or anything, but anybody that's shot a big buck or won a big game or whatever, I was very overcome with emotion, so I had to escape. I sat my bow down, I sat everything down, and ran to the portalet. And I just stood in there, like shivering with uncontrollable tears running out of my eyes. I wasn't sobbing or anything like that, wasn't crying. I just, like every emotion you could have, my teeth were like vibrating and numb, like that adrenaline dump from hell. where I'm like, oh my God, oh my God, oh my God, oh my God. So I always get chills when I think about it, because very few times in my life have I ever felt like that. And you always hear people say things like, oh, shooting targets is different than shooting a big buck. There's no adrenaline. I'm like, man, go stand on a line with 150 people watching you and another 100 people shooting. And you're like literally nuts to butt with people shooting. You're super close and it's like intense. So
Yeah. How would you compare it? So for those who should know but may not, Chris shot a booner on public last year. How would you compare it to shooting a booner on public? With a bow, I should add.
I would say so I was the booner, so the actual shooting of the booner didn't do a whole lot for me. I wasn't nervous that time or anything. But after I shot him, when I realized what I'd just done, I got a little shaky. But for those that don't know, it was kind of like a little odyssey, and I had to back out, and I recovered him the next morning. And I did not think I was going to recover him without miles and miles and a dog and all that. So when I found him, it caught me off guard, and I just sank to my knees and lost it. But this was very close to that. Like this is imagine like you almost got really hurt in a car accident. Like you almost had a really bad car accident.
Right.
That's what I compare it to. So,
wow. That's a lot of pressure to be feeling in a porta potty.
It is a lot of pressure in a porta potty. You're exactly right. And we're staying in this house on the ski resort with like 15 people, 20 people, whatever. It's a phenomenal time. And day 2, I'm like nervous as hell.
Oh yeah.
Because now I'm the leader.
Yeah.
And so I'm like, man, you got to go out and you got to do that again and blah, blah, blah. And the next day, a big patch of fog rolled in to the point where they called off the shoot for the day. And so we ended up, drinking coffee, eating food, playing cornhole, and I got to kind of chill a little bit. And so the following day, we went out. I took so many 8s that day. It was bad. I melted down there towards the end really bad. Couldn't take an 8 to save my life. Took a bunch of 8s. I ended up shooting 5 up when I really should have shot like 12 up or something. So I ended up shooting 5 up that day, which put me at 13 up total. We go to check, and I'm in second place. And a guy who hadn't been on the radar at all is leading it, which always makes me wonder, about some of the guys. I mean, it was amazing. Like you'd have guys that would magically shoot like 24 up or something crazy for a shoot on 40 targets. So out of 40 targets, 40 arrows, they shot 11s or X's on 24 of them.
And these 11s, are they? So I'm thinking of a 3D target right now. It's not obviously the 14 ring, which would be way outside the zone, but
Nope.
I'm assuming that it's analogous to the 12 ring and other shoots.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah. So
in other words, you can miss and still hit a good point.
Yes, absolutely. Okay. So there, and it's not. So what you're thinking of is ASA, and this was IBO. Right. So ASA, you're shooting the bottom of the top ring for a 12, and the 14 is back there, like at the. Isn't that kind of funny though? Our convo was that Kaiser, and where's the damn 14? Right where he talks about.
Right.
So,
right.
But that being said, the 11 is a little bigger, and it is the dead center of the 10 ring. So if you miss a little high, a little low, a little right, a little left, still got a little leeway. And to give you some perspective, the average target, which is like a wolf, a deer, something like that, would have a 4 7/8 inch diameter 10 ring, and then it was right around that 1 3/4 inch 1 5/8 11 ring, which would be dead center. The turkey, the lynx, Impala were just a little smaller, but and then you'd get into some like each 20 targets, you'd have a big target. It'd be an elk, a caribou, something like that. Yeah.
A zoomed in image of a
Yep.
IBO target here.
Perfect.
Oh,
Yep.
I don't know why I'm marking it up, but
So that's a perfect representation, and you can see the indentations now because we're really close up.
right.
Now, make that whole target black and put it in the shade, and go.
Yeah, I mean, if we can go,
Yeah, this
I'm
is
gonna go to the
perfect.
website here.
Nice little scorecards.
Yeah, right. I mean, if we take that, I mean, yeah, I can't imagine picking out all that.
So what would happen is you'd get a bunch of people that would hit, let's say, just out and just in 12 o'clock of the 11 ring up high there. And so
Mhm.
you'd have like a little black dot that you could see.
Hey guys, Rick here from the Mobile Hunter Podcast, and I'm here to tell you about one of our sponsors, Sadie's LLC, Custom Ammunition and Gun Works. Aaron Satterfield and his family have been turning out some awesome game loads that have been putting down deer, waterfowl, and turkey all year long. The Sadie's Fatty, the turkey load that we use, can stop a bird dead in its tracks. Check them out at saddiesllc.com. That's SATTIES LLC.com, or on Facebook at Saddies LLC, and tell them the Mobile Hunter Podcast sent you.
From a bunch of arrow holes. And so you'd be like, okay, you're holding up your binos. All right, that's 12 o'clock of the 11 ring. So I need to basically be a pin low of that dot, and that should put me right there if I get the yardage right.
Right, like that
Somewhere
would be
around.
the deal. I gotcha. All right, yeah. For those who are listening to it, obviously, go check out
Yeah.
the version on YouTube if you want to see the illustration we're showing of how these rings work out. But
Bedded elk.
yeah,
Hated the bedded targets.
yeah,
You can see
I
how
hate
thin the
bedded
8 ring
targets
gets
as well.
down there. That 8 ring is thin, and if you drop out of the 8, you're 5 in it.
Yeah.
Which is
dude,
terrible.
I can't even fathom how you guys shoot so well. Like I have a bit of I should probably get a clarifier, but I have like a bit of eyesight issues with I mean every adjustment I've made with my peep and with my sight housing and everything like that, the size of my pins, everything. I mean, it's always one of them's blurry for me. So
Yeah.
like just in the fact that you guys are guessing yardage and different lighting and stuff like that. I mean, I cannot fathom the way that you guys shoot. I really can't. And I'm a decent archer for a hunter, you know. Like I'm not great. I wouldn't say I'm like a good archer, but like I mean, I can shoot a pipe plate at 60 10 times out of 10 all the time,
Right.
but like I can shoot a softball probably 8 to 9 times out of 10, but like what you guys are doing is not the same as me standing barefoot in grass in my backyard.
It's very crazy. So me and Luke both had the same bow. We had the same draw length, same arrow setup, same everything. And I shot his bow during a tournament indoors when mine was acting up. And I'll never forget, we stood back on the pro line at the 50-yard line with our hunter class setups. Meanwhile, these guys have tapes with sights that you can dial to the half yard. They've got the lenses, verifiers, clarifiers, lenses in their scopes, and then they've got the long bars and everything. And we stood back there and shot with them. And I remember we both took an 11 on a white goat that was elevated. So you're not just aiming like this, you're aiming about like that at 50 yards. And
Oh my
we
God.
both hit the 11, and they just looked at us like Jesus. Like we were not Bo Jesus, but you get what I'm saying. Good God. So, but I remember very specifically on that day too, when I just kind of melted down, there was an elevated max yardage, 35-yard dark wolf in a pine thicket. And in this one too, so you had most of your shots were way up or way down, but you also were fighting the side hill. So like you'd be standing on the side of a mountain while drawing up. So your feet are like this or like this while you're trying to go like that and like that. It's freaking nuts.
Mhm.
So and you have to touch that damn stake. Like there's a lot going on. Then you add in footing, like with mud and all that. It had rained, and it's a lot. So this wolf, 2 guys had went way to the left of the 10, and you could pretty much see that one was a 9 o'clock 10 ring on the outside, and one was a 9 o'clock 10 ring on the inside. And the arrows were touching with the ring in between them, basically. That's how I would describe it. Well, I let my arrow go, and we heard crack. And I glassed, and my arrow was, thank God, in only the 8 ring. I had glanced off somebody's arrow when we got up there.
Oh, no.
I busted both of their knocks off and glanced into the 8 ring. And that's what you get. Yeah. So if I don't take that 8, I'm a world champion. And you could, it's like an interception or anything in a football game, right?
Wow.
You could point the finger at anything that you did wrong or whatever, but
yeah, like everyone. I know in wrestling they would have been like, "Don't make the score so close." You know, you could have performed better earlier. But holy crap!
Yeah. So I broke both of their knocks, glance into the 8 ring, and I'm just like struggling. But we go and check the leaderboards, and it's basically this guy named Billy, and it's me, and then it's my buddy Luke, and we are the top group. And then so it's the top 5 scores. So if there's 10 people with the 5th highest score, then they make it. That's generally not how it works out. So, but we did have 6 total, I believe. So the other group of 3, they shot before us, and then we shot. And I'll never forget my buddy. I'm a very competitive guy. We were on our way back to the house, and he's like, "Are you so excited for me that I'm going to win the world championship tomorrow?" Because he was only down by like 1 or 2. And the guy ahead of me was only up by 1. So we were all super close together. And on that, and he was, I'm sure he was, meaning a little bit by it, but we're buddies and shooting partners and all that. But I took that super personal. And I remember I thought, okay, dude, like I'm going to show you who's going to win the world championship tomorrow. So on the first 6 targets, I shot 5 11s. and like I was out of my mind, and it was like a laser focus of, I'm so pissed that he said that to me yesterday. I'm going to shoot 10 up and step on his neck, kind of you know what I mean?
Mm-hmm.
Well, and he took 2 8s to start, and the other dude took an 8. So I'm like, I'm going to beat these guys. Well, then in comes reality, and I shot, I want to say I took 2 8s. Yeah, I took 2 8s. So that would be, yeah. And then I ended up taking another 11, I believe it was. And then they kind of took some 11s as well. And the biggest mistake I ever made, we are on the last target. And I didn't know where I was. I should have slowed everything down. And I should have asked, who was up, blah, 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 blah. Mm-hmm. But I was really nervous about getting called a cheater because we'd been called cheaters and stuff that year. And I didn't know like what I was technically allowed to ask. And there's only one scorekeeper, and I was not it. So I didn't know, where I was as far as like, am I tied with this guy or whatever? So I remember thinking on the last target, which was like a 31-yard coyote, I thought, we don't want to drop out of this one because I always miss the yardage low. So it'd be like 34, and I'd shoot it for, I think there was a standing bear in a creek, and they yarded the heck out of me. It was like 33 yards we figured out, and I shot it for like 22 yards. Like, it's a good thing that I executed an amazing shot because I missed the yardage terribly and hung like I was barely touching the 8 line because a 5 and I'm not even in the top 3.
Right.
So I get on that last target, and I'm like, man, you've shot low a lot. let's just aim a scotch high on this one. We don't want to get yarded. So I literally remember they were kind of messing with me a little bit, telling jokes, trying to mess with me. It was technically illegal, but I thought, okay. And I remember putting my pin directly in between the 10 and the 11 ring, splitting them perfectly in the middle. And that's where my arrow hit. And so everybody took 10s on that target. If I'd have shot an 11, if I'd have just aimed at it and been more aggressive like I had been, again, I'd be world champion. Because it wasn't ever a question, this sounds arrogant, but it was never a question of if I could hit it. Like, I would hit whatever I wanted, basically, for the most part, especially on a target like that. It was a very simple footing, wasn't super elevated or, below us or anything. So, but I remember just sitting there and, like, I had a 5.5 hour, 6 hour drive home by myself. And all the pressure of the year and everything just coming off me, super emotional. But I ended up finishing number 2 in the world, which was just still crazy. I hated that, and it still eats at me like probably every day. But ain't nothing wrong with silver. You know what I mean? Like,
did your buddy end up winning it, or did the other guy?
Oh no, the other guy won. My buddy finished third.
Wow.
So it was really surreal and crazy, and I was actually ready to walk away from competition archery because of all the drama and all the time it took up. And I think so for the world shoot, I ended up winning like $850 for that, but that didn't even touch my fees and gas and hotels and everything, equipment and all that. And I'm like, I'm not going to do this anymore. And then I'd go and finish number 2, and my buddy and my wife are both like, you might want to stick with this a little while. And so I did it for another 1.5 years, and we won another national championship the following year as a team. And then we got 2 shoots into the following year, and we were both like, what are we doing? Like, we're never going to make money doing this. It's fun, but you're talking about shooting a 3D shoot, which is 3, 4, 5, 6 hours, depending on, where it's at and all that, every single weekend, and then being gone for 3 or 4 days to shoot a national 7 months out of the year. Well, not for 7 months, but a weekend 7 times a year, which is 7 months. So, and then all the money and then all the time practicing, and it just wasn't worth it. The ROI was not there. So I thought, I'm going to do something, with our social media, and, we're going to start a YouTube channel and all that, and maybe we'll try that and see if we can make money there. Well, walked away from archery, spring of 2021. The expo was born that fall. So here we are. So kind of crazy, but it was weird to me though, how I had made that post and burnt the Oh Jesus box and all that, and then kind of had something to show for it.
It seems like that quote unquote curse being, it's a real thing. Obviously you had issues with your bow and all that. But it seems like that might be a little bit of divine intervention for you to mature as a person.
Absolutely. Yeah. I grew up a lot that day really, but that during that shoot and everything, that taught me a heck of a lot. And I was pretty arrogant. The previous year, I technically would have finished top 10 in the nation. I shot a Boone and Crockett whitetail, had this, solid size following, whatever. And I let it get the best of my head. And it was very interesting though, because I had a buddy who had really helped me a lot with learning how to do bow work and all that. And I remember one of his comments on the post I made after the shoot and everything at Worlds, because, we called each other and kind of cut up and celebrated ourselves. And he said something like, good archers find problems and great archers fix them. And that's really what it boils down to is, it's no different than me and you trying to solve a problem in the mobile hunting area of life, right? Like, or deer hunting in general. You're trying to accomplish something. So you come up with this sort of list of ways you go about it, but there's always these bumps in the road no matter what you do. And it's so fitting with that year how life goes. Like you've got plans and God's like, all right, boy, now we're going to see what you're made of. We're going to find out how tough you really are. And I'll be honest, I struggle when things don't go my way. So, I mean, a lot of us do. So it was a tough year, but the hands down the most memorable year probably of anything outdoors I've had.
Yeah. And that's amazing. That's crazy. I also can't picture you winning worlds as a team, or like, if you won worlds, you get $850. Like, especially because, all of our expo staff, you pay about $900 a day to work there. Every single individual. Yeah. I'm just kidding.
Right.
But I mean, honestly, in all the stuff you do, you take care of everyone very well. So that is an expensive venture. No spit at that. But
yeah.
And I think that's from, man, there's a lot. I know you as a person, and I can see a lot of how you are built into that story. Like, your response to people not treating you well is to then go and treat people well. There's the way that people treat each other, the way that your friend made a comment to you about how he's going to win worlds motivated you to go out and make that your absolute goal, and you shot out of your mind at the beginning there. And that you took accountability for the things that went wrong and didn't make excuses, and that is resonated in many areas of your life. And what a stage to learn those lessons on the actual world stage. Like, man, that has got to be just terrifying, but
it's crazy,
gratifying at the same time.
Yeah, I did say to Josh and Rick when we were talking about like what we would do for everybody that works for the shows and everything. Like, we gotta take care of people. You can't, because it would probably be fairly easy to get people to work for free.
People offer it all the time to us.
They offer it all the time, and
even when we're adamant about trying to take care of them, they're like, no.
And it's like, man, I remember what that was like, and it's a raw deal. And I also think, from looking back at some of the people that were on our staff, that I was on staff with, I guess, you get what you pay for sure. And so you definitely want to make sure that you're taking care of your people and everything. I mean, I learned a lot and my God, it was one of the tougher things, aside from like, deaths and stuff like that, of course, but like just growing into being a man and everything was probably the toughest thing I'd ever gone through. It is, and I sound like I grew up in Pleasantville or something. Like, been through plenty of stuff as a kid or whatever, but it's just it's very difficult to not to be humble when you have things going right. Basically, like, it's easy to fall into all that, and so that was kind of like a smack in the back of the head from God. Like, hey, shut up. You're blessed right now. You need to shut up and go do the things that got you to point A and B before we get to C, D, E, and blah, 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 whatever we're at now.
Yeah, absolutely. And just that you didn't let those things shut you down is a huge lesson, and I've seen you carry that through hunting as well. And there's a saying that comes to mind is, we can't stop the wind, but we can adjust our sails. We can't curse the wind and do anything about it. It's going to happen anyways, but we can set our course for the right direction and adjust all the things that happen to us. And I think as I grow as a man, and I have a lot to go, but I'm very fortunate that I have a lot of friends that are mature and are older, have gone through all these things, gone through stuff I could never imagine, and I'm going through things that they couldn't as well. But I get to learn from the good and bad of what's happened to them.
Yeah.
And I'm very blessed in, I hate the word, the hunting industry. I hate that phrase. I hate the more you get into it, the more disgusting it sounds to say. And
Agree.
and you just see examples, and these are the same examples that we're looking at and trying to be against the grain with, but you see those, and it's just difficult to fathom that those were the people that you looked up to, from the outside in. But those are also things that we can see as an opportunity to look at. And if anything has come good about being, I hate saying that I'm a part of this industry just because I feel egotistical even saying that, but being a part of some form of hunting media and stuff like that, I have been very fortunate to meet a lot of really awesome people. And Chris, you're one of those people, and maybe you, Dan, Jake Bush, like more so you three and some obviously plenty others, more so than anyone, have gotten to help me meet people that have changed my life and changed my attitude, helped me become who I am, and helped me mature. And I'm very thankful for everything that's happened with that. And I'm also thankful that you placed second at Worlds and were called Bo Jesus and failed. And because those lessons that you've gone through have ultimately helped formulate who I am and given me the perspective that I do have going through life. And I know that there's many other people that don't get the opportunity to tell you that.
I
And
appreciate that.
it's going to continue to happen too. Like with the mission that we're all on with these expos is a very pure and beautiful one, and that's very uncommon. So thank you for sharing this story, really, and thank you for learning the lessons that it took.
There, we talk about this so much, dude, with targeting big deer. We always equate failure to learning, and I learn a lot.
Yeah.
It's constant, and I don't think there's ever going to be anything that I'll ever do where I'm just not constantly failing at it, and it stings the hell out of you, but then you learn. And so I mean, if there's that, you talk about, we've all had something for the most part where we've messed up on a big buck, whether we spooked him or missed him or wounded or whatever. That's still pretty much the equivalent of the finishing number two, because I had it right there, shot 5.11s and 6 targets, and I'm like, man, a couple more of those, and it's not even reachable, but they got me with some targets. So, it's crazy how to this day, that was 2019. So, 5 years later or whatever, it still stings like it did. But then I think about, it does ease it a little bit when I think about what I learned and how much better I am. And I'd love to have that buckle that you get, and the more, a couple $100 more or whatever it was. And of course, the ability to say, hey, I'm a world champion. I'm, number one instead of number two. But at the same rate, I would venture a guess that how that transpired has led me to where I'm at right now. And I'll take where I'm at right now over a belt buckle and a couple $100. So.
Yeah, absolutely. Absolutely. We all have the choice to take the examples we see and either emulate them or, do the opposite and learn from them. And I also, something that comes to mind from what you said when I did that interview with Andy, Andy May said, I was trying to express how failure relates to hunting and stuff. And he said that, it's not just a part of it. It's necessary. It's a prerequisite to success.
Yeah.
There are lessons that, despite whatever we say on these podcasts and whatever you see people go through, that you cannot learn without experiencing a bitter failure first. And there's no better way to learn those things, because if you just hear something and you try to make it a part of you, it's not your own. You haven't had the intimate pain that creates, the habit that counteracts it. And I also want people to know that listen to this is, we're not perfect. Like I say a lot of stuff about like taking good lessons and trying to pull the best things out of them and adjusting my sales and all that stuff. And that's how and I know Chris and I know everyone else that we work with try to live their lives, but we're humans. We fail all the time at it. And now is a time of the season that a lot of people have gone through a lot of failure and they've got a decision to make is how are you going to handle the rest of the season? Like, are you going to take all those lessons you've learned the hard way and store them in the bank for next year and sit back and reflect? Or are you going to take advantage of the last time you have and grind it out? So I
Yeah.
think there's a lot of growth to be done, even just through like this small story and these lessons. I think there's a lot of growth that people can take from it.
Yeah. I agree 100%. And it's really, I just think about it and it applies to like everything. Like I remember, that was about the time that I was also transitioning to public land hunting and all that and going through failing, like embarrassing failure of not even seeing deer and all of that. And then I'm watching damn Jake Bush post a 25-point buck, on public land that he filmed. And
In one of his first years in Ohio, and you're like,
yeah,
what am I?
like, this is crazy. And I almost fell down that trap of like, is this real? And then, of course, I talked to him and I'm like, oh, that's like a million. This dude's ridiculous. Like there's no question in my mind that this is more than just real. So it's very interesting though how, again, those failures, they might sting, but they are sort of a prerequisite to just teaching you. And I think that's honestly like the biggest divider for the guys who, may kill a nice buck or a big buck or whatever consistently, or even just having encounters and being a solid public land hunter. They're not afraid of failure. And it's almost like the best ones seek it out. Like they go out like, I'm going to blow this up. And if I don't, well, it's going to be pretty good. But then they end up learning. And I mean, look at Jake. I mean, he technically failed for, 2 years. And then on the third, I mean, another mega giant of a deer, a bunch of crappy circumstances and, things that were in his control and were out of his control. And then boom, there you have it.
That guy has just such a fantastic outlook on everything in life. We were going to record a podcast last week and for in session, and he messaged me and said he had to cancel. And he's like, I'm sorry, like work's been super busy and stuff's going on with my life, and he's like, I got to spend time with the family tonight. So first off, respect the hell out of that decision that he's got to spend time with his family. But I just said, yeah, man, like here for you if you need anything, hope everything's all right. And he was just like, me, I would have been like, damn, like, that my life just is tough right now. And he texted me back without skipping a beat, dealing with the pressure and whatever of, skipping a podcast, canceling it because of what's going on in his life. And he's like, yeah, man, I'm just so thankful that I have a job that is worth stressing this much over, and I can use it to provide for my family, and I have a beautiful family to go home to, and I have friends like you that understand. Like, imagine how mentally sound you would be and how happily you would sleep every night if you could take a hard situation like that and your initial thought was that way. Like,
right.
That's awesome. And that guy just lives it.
He's like the Tom Brady of deer hunting, man. He
Without
like
the cheating.
He always has like the perfect thing to say. He's so calm and everything. I'm like,
He's worked at it for so long.
Yeah.
And that's the thing too, is transitioning from talking about Jake in general, but the way I think about these things in life, even more so when you see those examples of great people, I just think like, man, what did you have to go through to get where you're at? Like what kind of, some of the greatest people that anyone has heard of have been through some of the craziest traumas that you could imagine. And they almost never talk about it, or they use it to motivate themselves. And there's some people that you would never know have gone through anything in their life, but I feel like the evidence is there in the way they conduct themselves, that, they must either had some phenomenal, perfect people as examples throughout their entire life, which is very unlikely, or they had a mixture of that and some very hard things to go through and reacted to it in the right way. And man, I tell you what, it takes a lot of the correct decisions in a row to orient your life that way and respond to events like that. But you just don't come across people that often. And I will say, like, more so I respect the people that are on their way to it. You know, like there's more often you do meet the people that are trying to do everything they can to be peaceful with others and themselves and in that state of mind. And I do truly feel blessed to interact with so many of those people on a daily basis. And Chris, you are certainly in that camp. You know, we're all human, but like we have a group chat, and obviously we joke around. We're boys, like, you know, we do what we do in it.
Too much, boys.
Yeah, right. We do what we do, and at the same time, like, it's always oriented back towards a place of, hey, how can we motivate each other to become better? And you know, maybe it's not in those words, but like you just messaged the other day, like, hey, I got an hour here. Do you guys have some body weight workouts I can do to like exhaust myself? And me and Josh are like fire fingers, like typing up a list, like trying to, we're like, this is great. And like, you know, before the podcast, you're talking about how you want to get back on a diet and stuff. And like, I mean, that's motivating me right now too. So I appreciate that I can surround myself with people like you.
I got you, brother. It means a lot. I'm really, that's probably like, you know, I listened to a lot of Jordan Peterson. You ever hear of him?
Yeah, absolutely.
All right. So he talked about basically sitting yourself down and just asking yourself, what am I doing wrong that I could change? And if there was ever anything, not that I'm like perfect other than this, but the biggest thing that I could ever change is my health and physical condition. And I just keep thinking, like, you know, I had kind of a rough childhood, grew up without a dad, and I'm pretty bitter about it or whatever, right? But what's the difference between a dad who chooses to leave because of X and a dad who doesn't take care of his body and he ends up dying or something, you know, which that's pretty extreme, but that's also real. That happens every day. So between that and now trying to keep up with all you young asses on this public land and running these shows and doing everything that we're doing, I just thought, man, there's a really simple answer. It's not simple to do, but it's a very, very simple answer. You're older and you are out of shape, and you can't make yourself younger, but you could eat better and put better things in your body and do things to get ready. So, and one of my biggest goals, one of my biggest, my biggest dream in hunting, aside from, you know, hunt with your son and all that, is to kill a bull elk with a bow. And I'm fine. I'll kill it with a rifle, but my best odds are probably to kill one with a bow. And so I've found a place with elk and all that. And now I need to be ready not only to be able to hopefully kill that bull, but man, I couldn't live with myself if I couldn't get the bull out. And that is going to be the most brutal damn thing anybody could go through, aside from, you know, Alaskan moose or something. So, and I'm such a procrastinator, and everybody's all, you know, oh, the new year, I'll wait till the new year. And no, I'm going to start now. So, and I'm going to like get myself ready. I failed this year so far with deer hunting, and I'm like, you have to scout more. If you got to scout in the dark this year, that's what we're going to do. But whatever we got to do, we got to be in shape and ready for it. So that's why I messaged you guys the other day, like, we got to do this, or it's never going to get done. You're just going to be all the time.
A lot of people say, like, I'd die for my kids or I'd die for my friends. Well, like, would you live for them? You know, would you? Yeah, everyone knows that dieting in the right way and exercising will increase your longevity. Like, period. You know, exercising 90 minutes a week reduces your all-cause mortality by like 17 or 18%. Your chances of dying of cancer and any other method. And everyone knows that it's really good for you. They know that it's the way that you're going to live longer, but doing it is another thing. And that's why I said, like, I try to surround myself maybe not with all the people that have it all figured out, but the ones that know what they should be doing and try to do something every day. And there's not going to be any deer you kill. There's not going to be any elk you kill. There's not going to be any shape that you get in or anything like that. There's no accolade that will ever stop the struggle. There's no thing that you're going to accomplish and be like, all right, well, now this is over. Like, now, like, this has been satisfied. I can be happy. That satisfaction will never be there. And that's why we are the way we are in society. That's why we have amazing things all around us and can hop on technology like a video call and travel to the freaking moon and back. It's because we're constantly innovating, and that's that drive within us. And I think the more you focus on the little tasks each day that get to you to where you want to go and just push you in that direction, but maybe you don't ever fully achieve it, but just pushing yourself in that direction every day, the more you find peace in that, the more you truthfully have arrived to where you need to be as a human being. I
agree. 100%, dude.
Well, I had you on to tell this crazy story about Bo Jesus, but I really love the direction that this has honestly gone in. And if I could have a talk like this every day, I would make it my alarm tone and make it 30 minutes long.
Right.
But dude, I really appreciate you being on here. I appreciate everything you've done for me and, you know, the outdoors and the people that consume your content as a whole over the last several years, and more so the lessons that you learned that have got you to where you are.
Appreciate you having me on the series, brother. Means a lot. And dude, I'll be freaking jacked to hopefully link up and do something before the shows, whether that's scouting, fishing, turkey hunting, however we're able to make that work. But I'd imagine we should be able to, if not in Wisconsin or my state, maybe a state in between or whatever. So
we'll find a way. Things are either going to die or they're going to get closer to dying.
That's what I keep telling everybody. Like, I have one more year before my son is in kindergarten, and then all hell is going to break loose. I'm going wild.
Yeah, absolutely. Well, thank you, Chris. Have a good night, man.
Yep, you too, brother. Thanks for tuning in to this week's podcast. The best way you can support the podcast is by sharing online and with your buddies at deer camp. Please follow us on Facebook and Instagram and leave us a 5-star review.